In this part of our exercise, we want to be able to animate some text that falls along a curved path. So let's get started. To get started on this part, let's go down to our timeline and move over to the next section we're going to work on. I'm also going to click on my work area and drag it over so that it goes to roughly 5 seconds to 10 seconds. Let's use the type tool to type out the words travel down the road. We'll place this nice and centered inside of here. One thing I should have done was also change my paragraph style to be left aligned. When I do this, you may have to reposition it over to here. To get this to fall upon a line, make sure that layer is selected, so travel down the road layer is selected. Use your pen tool and we're going to draw a curved line that starts off of the frame and then curves around through the frame. To do this, all I'm going to do is click once out here, then click and drag in the middle and drag down and to the right, and then click once again off to the edge, and that'll complete the rest of the curve. To get the text to fit on this curve, go down to your Layers panel. With the layers selected, open up the text options. Looks like I have too much. There we go. Open up the path options and set your path to be from none to mask 1. Notice when you do this, the text now fits nicely onto the actual path that we just drew off. To animate these words moving along the path, let's set our playhead to be right at 5 seconds and 11 frames. This is where they first start saying the words travel down the road. The type of animation we're going to do is going to be the first margin. So click on the first margin stopwatch to add your keyframe. Then you can click on the number itself and scrub it to the left. And you can see when we do this, it starts to move our text off the frame to the left. Now your number may be different. The main thing is I'm moving it until the text is completely off the frame. This will be our starting point. Then we can move our playhead to 6 seconds and 15 frames, which is roughly where that line ends. Then we can click on the first margin bit and scrub it till it's nice and centered inside of our text or along our line. So right about there. Now if I was to play it, you can see how it falls this way. The final thing I want to do is to make this be a little bit more snappy. To do that, we're going to add some easing and adjust the easing for these 2 keyframes. So select both of the keyframes. You can right click on them, choose, there we go. Right click on them, choose Keyframe Assistant, and let's add some easy ease. Doing this will make it start and stop a little bit more naturally. If you really wanted to push it a little bit more, with both of those keyframes selected, click on the graph editor. Make sure you've got your speed graph selected. So if I go to type, I'm choosing my speed graph. Then you can select the individual anchor points and drag it until it looks something like this. Now if I go back to play it, I think that moves in much quicker and comes to a nice stop. With this done, we can close it out, and we're done with this layer. Let's do the same for adding the text and back again. This time we're going to animate it coming in from the right-hand side. Again, we're going to choose our type tool, click once, type out and back again. I'm going to roughly center it up in my screen for now. Use your pen tool, and with 3 clicks, the first one being off to the side, the second one being in the middle, we're going to drag to the lower right, and then click again off to the edge. That'll give you a nice little curve. If you need to adjust this at any time, you can use your arrow tools to move it around to get it where you want it to be. To get the text along the path, let's go down to our options and open up and back again, text, your path options, and set your path to be mask 1. This will put it along the edge. For now, we want these to start at 7 seconds. So set your playhead to 7 seconds. There we go. We're going to turn on the first margin, and this time we're going to scrub it all the way to the right until it's off of our keyframe. There it is, set to there. We can then move forward to 8 seconds, and let's scrub our first margin back to the left until it's nice and centered underneath your other words. That looks pretty good right there. If we want to test it, that looking good. And if you want, you can select your keyframes, right-click on them, and add some easy ease. And you can even open up your graph editor. And though it looks opposite or backwards, you can still select those keyframes and kind of move it over to let it go faster in this section. I think that's looking good. Let's get out of our keyframe and let's test the entire scene. Great. We can now close up our layers, and just as we did with the first one, we want to group these together as a pre-comp and have the entire composition move off of the screen. So select both of your new timelines for your text layers, right-click on it and choose Pre-Compose. This one I'm going to call Travel Down the Road. We'll say OK. Then on our timeline, we simply need to trim the playheads to start, or excuse me, trim the timelines to start right where it needs to be. So in our case, I'm going to let it start right about 5 seconds, and I'm going to let it end about 10 seconds. There it is, set to there. So if I played the whole thing, looking great. The final thing I need to do is to have this animated to take the entire composition off my screen. In this case, I'll leave it up to you how you want to do this. For me, I'm going to set my playhead to be at 8 seconds and 12 frames. So let's move it back to roughly 8.5 seconds. I'm going to open up my text transform options, and I'm simply going to turn on my position keyframe. From here, I can move it to 9 seconds, and I'm just going to drag my entire composition till it's off of my area. Now, when it goes on, it moves off frame and gets me set up for the next set of text that needs to be part of my composition. Let's go up to File and save our document and move on to animating some individual characters, words, or lines.